Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you're viewing this. I'm Stephen Ponce with KPMG, and I'm here today with two of my colleagues, Lynn Gonser and Rob Kojakaru, to present how human capital and culture align to propel performance. Make no mistake, despite its cliche, people are organizations' number one asset. And taking that saying a bit further, how an organization sources, develops, and motivates its people through shared values and incentives are organization's most powerful driver to accelerate consistent and enduring performance. It's widely accepted that the newest service members, regardless of military service or officer or enlisted rank, bring with them a heavy reliance on technology with a heightened expectation for immediate response. So why do many companies and government organizations still rely on a corporate culture and human capital processes and tools that were built years, if not decades ago? In some instances, it may be personal attachment from those years of funding legacy systems still in development or being maintained. In others, it may be overly complex system interfaces that make streamlining and sunsetting legacy systems a highly political exercise. Yet in other cases, it may be that the right innovative solution to meet service members' needs hasn't yet surfaced. We recognize that many federal government organizations, including military services, are currently fielding several options when it comes to modernizing their delivery models for managing talent. The talent life cycle is broad, and many considerations need to be made in terms of implementing compelling recruitment strategies, how to foster a culture in which service members want to stay and feel that they're valued members of a broader team and mission, and how to reward and develop talent. Today, we'd like to present to you some foundational details on human capital and culture, our perspective on how both of those topics have been impacted by COVID-19 and beyond, and lastly, a few examples of where human capital and culture have aligned for some of our clients, as well as internally within our firm to propel performance. First, I'll turn it over to Rob Kojakaru to discuss talent attraction and how recruitment strategies have shifted because of candidate pool expectations and digital channels over in-person engagement. Rob, over to you.
Talent attraction has just been disrupted over these past 18 months. Prior to the pandemic, it was incredibly interesting to see what the four items were that were causing disruptors. One, 100-year life. People are living longer. We've got 4 generations, 5 in some cases, that are in the workplace today. And each one has a different type of culture driver that's associated to it. The second, intelligent automation. Extreme automation is making a massive shift toward pushing technology forward and less use on a particular individual to be able to do administrative tasks. The third, the contingent worker and the gig population. When you look at how you order food, the hotels that you stay in, how you get a cab or a car for a ride from here to there, has made a tremendous impact in the way that we do business today. And then, of course, the last was consumerism behavior. Everyone has an expectation of the immediate everything. A positive experience, very organic. Nowadays, when you need something, the first thing you do is you typically pull out your smartphone, you look for what you need, you order it, and then a couple of days later, it's received. And that's become the expectation when you look at the workforce as well. And then when we think about post-pandemic experiences, the disruptors are just like the first 4, but now we're going to flip them on their ear. Think about the lockdowns that occurred during that time. Well, normal recruitment that would happen in the armed forces would be based on being able to go into a recruitment office. Well, you can't do that anymore. Talked about social distancing, being able to shake hands, give a business card, be able to have one-on-one interaction. You can't do that anymore either. So when we talk about the way recruiters would generate interest in terms of walking the halls at high schools, that candidate generation now can no longer occur. Schools are closed, they're locked down. So how do you gain interest in the armed forces? Things are changing. The recruitment strategies have changed. Now what we're talking about is going from in-person to virtual. Now I have to generate interest either via collaboration tools or social media. And social media is one of the ways that they're starting to generate more and more attention. One of those ways is virtual job fairs. How do we get people interested in what we do? Well, let's show them what it is. Let's create videos. Let's create collateral that gives me an understanding of what a day in a life looks like. And now we're using visuals to do that more than a typical word of mouth. And before, it was interesting because every time a recruiter would meet someone, they would plant a seed of that opportunity. But now they have to find different ways to meet. So it's interesting to see how, when we talk about candidate generation, it's now focused on social media, virtual interactions, and being able to get everyone interested in what the day in the life of being an armed forces individual is like. And those virtual hiring days are incredibly important because it gives you an understanding of what the culture is of the armed forces, as well as what that lifestyle would be like. And that is critical, especially when we talk about performance and what drives performance when we start talking about culture. Lynn, I'd love for you to connect dots and give us a little bit of an understanding between culture and performance.
Thank you, Rob. Something that's increasingly become a topic in hiring is culture. It's often talked about in the recruiting process, and it's for sure an issue in retention. But what is it? What is culture? It's that sometimes intangible, often called soft thing that can be really hard to define. But culture is real and it hangs in the air. You can really feel it. And it might be an expression of appreciation or an aggressive comment that feels demeaning. It might be that you wear a uniform to work, or that you wear flip-flops, or that you bring your dog, or you bring your gun, or you bring both your dog and your gun. It's kind of packed really about what behaviors are acceptable and what behaviors are rewarded. I remember a number of years ago, PepsiCo had developed a reputation for being such a tough place to work that they had trouble attracting talent. The word was that the day you walked in the door, they fired a bullet with your name on it, and you spent the rest of the time, sometimes years, trying to outrun it. Being from PepsiCo actually became a liability once you left because people thought you were going to be difficult to work with. So they couldn't get the people they needed. What ended up happening was they had a huge program that they ran to change the culture. They developed a new set of values, and then they measured people against those values, particularly holding leaders' feet to the fire. One was respect for others, and that didn't change overnight. It took years, but it did change, and now it's a great place to work and has a wonderful reputation. So how do you create a dynamic and agile culture? How do you create a culture that's innovative, one where people will thrive, where new capabilities will flourish? How can culture be used to help you shift away from the traditional supply and demand workforce planning, where service members feel more like just a number, to one where they feel really engaged and where they're really going to bring themselves to work and try their hardest? It really comes down to behaviors. What are the behaviors that are rewarded? What do you want to develop in your teams? What do you want the culture to be? And you need to plan for that and be thoughtful about it. Do you want to foster collaboration? Do you want to spur innovation? Do you want to create a team of fighters willing to go the distance for a mission? You can use culture to drive value. Culture is inherently a control mechanism. It guides people and helps them know how to behave and what is expected. So if you think about culture as a way to attract and retain good people, culture becomes an organizational capability. Capability development is not an individual sport, it is a team sport. The development of capabilities needs to be tied to the overall organizational mission and vision. What is the mission? What is the vision of your organization, what you're trying to achieve? Then what is your function's role in delivering on that? And then what's your team's role in delivering on that? And then ultimately, how do you personally contribute to the overall mission and vision of the team, of the organization, creating the right culture, driving the right behaviors, creating a culture where you want to work, one that others will want to work in, and one that really delivers on the mission. Culture is a critical part of talent attraction and talent retention.
Great points, Lynn, and worth noting that at KPMG, we've also prioritized culture across the firm after seeing over recent years that we had some opportunities to strengthen our core values and rally around a stronger culture. To do so, we created a vice chair of culture at the board level, reporting directly to our US CEO and chairman. For the past few years, our vice chair of culture's initiative, rooted in human capital and transformation approaches, invigorated a firm-wide elevation of culture as a tangible strength of our organization and a renewed passion towards working together across functional capabilities for a greater good and sense of duty. One example where performance was enhanced by our strengthening culture was at the onset of COVID-19, when several banks across the country were charged with processing massive waves of applications for the Paycheck Protection Program, also known as PPP, so that small businesses nationwide could remain whole despite the pandemic disruptions. So within a matter of days, we were able to mobilize several thousand KPMG professionals to work round-the-clock shifts to support PPP processing for months on end to support the nationwide response to COVID-19. Now I'll turn it back over to Rob to discuss talent development.
Thanks, Stephen. The trends nowadays have changed, especially when we talk about agile L&D strategies, because before it was all about in person. How do we do things today? Technology and the disruption from a pandemic standpoint has sort of changed the way we reskill our workforce and upskill that workforce. And by that, I mean there have been changes in the way that we can portray information. We can't have people all come to one location. So the location and the disparity of the fact that we can't meet creates challenge. Processes and methods have changed, not only in the way that we communicate now, because now we're using technology hopefully more effectively, but because those processes and methods may have changed themselves. So being able to keep up with what those training processes are critical, and we're keeping them up to date. The other piece is learning is every day. It's no longer planned. It's no longer that each quarter there's a particular set of lessons that you need to do. We're integrating learning into people's everyday, and it becomes a means to development around those applicable skills. Again, which ties to upskilling and reskilling that workforce. And then, of course, the way we do it. Integrating virtual and digital, scrambling from classroom to digital first, now looking long-term and holistically to the tools that are necessary, rather than thinking about how do we do things now, today, and in person. It's interesting when we talk about integrating virtual with digital, there's one organization that does something that's actually kind of cool. You have one life to live, and they've created a game. There's a logistical center and a storage facility within it. And they give you a set of items that need to be stored in the appropriate places. Some are dangerous, some are not. And the game is to be able to identify where they go. Again, you only get one life, so if you get it wrong and you store something where it's not supposed to, the facility explodes. But it's an interesting game, and it's a great analogy to be able to say, rather than just doing things day to day or changing things into pencil and paper, find ways digitally to make it engaging and making it fun. So training no longer feels like something you have to do. There's a little bit more of a fun spin on the ball, and you enjoy learning what you need to learn. So those three things are rapid reskilling and upskilling, understanding what your needs are. 2, learning that every day is important. It's no longer planned. It's no longer a quarter out. And then 3rd, virtual. It's no longer classroom-based. It's now either through gamification, lessons online, or instructor-led classes that are more than just a collaboration tool or a particular meeting.
Thanks, Rob, and thanks, Lynn, for those outstanding insights. So a week ago, I had an opportunity to attend a webcast with a key Space Force and Space Command leader as the speaker. During the Q&A, the leader was asked, "What advice do you give to those under your leadership?" To which she replied, "Think like a 3-year-old and always ask why." And it wasn't so much the sense of being in a combative type of way of asking why, but instead from the vantage point of professional curiosity, challenging the status quo to bring about new and innovative ways to evolve the organization. And it really resonated with me since we're in the middle of tremendous change, or great opportunities to ignite tremendous change across our respective organizations, whether it be related to warfighter capabilities or the process by which you move through the ranks, or better yet, something less tangible, but critically important as the cultural fabric of your team. Hopefully today's session was helpful in sparking ideas to further push the needle of your organization's human capital processes and culture. If you have any questions or wish to have additional discussion, please don't hesitate to reach out. On behalf of KPMG, thank you so much for your time and have a great rest of your day.